get up and dash 100 meters and I would eat up the competition. It's just non-existent. I kick my feet up. Thought I was passing till I got blasted.
Welcome to 3-Count Commentaries. Dynamite was an absolute doozy. What a doozy. But before we get into that, let's talk about this AAPI thing that I just saw Tony Khan. I just saw this commercial. I don't think I've ever seen it before. I think it's been floating around for a while. But I didn't know AAPI month was even a thing. I don't even know what that is. I think it's, I'm looking it up now as I talk, and it's Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. That's what that is? Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders? Why are they being lumped together like this? It's the desire of a certain group of people to turn you and who you are into a box to be checked. And that's really all you exist to do, is to be a box to be checked by some dweeb somewhere in human resources. So in any event, Tony Khan does this thing, and he basically says that he, watching wrestling, never saw somebody who looked like him represented as being a good person. And I, for a minute, I was like, what the hell is he talking about? Somebody that looks like him. I hadn't even thought about it, that he is Pakistani. And I thought about it. Is there any Pakistani baby faces? And I would say, back in the day, the answer would probably be no. There weren't any Pakistani baby faces back in the day. We were kind of in the whole foreign heel market. We would definitely get, the foreign heel. If you were a Muslim of any kind or came from a Muslim country, or even if you were just a regular old brown skinned guy, or you could get pretty brown, like a Mark Merrow or something. Chances are you were trying to play in the sandbox of quote unquote BIPOC, people of color, or whatever. So I gave him a bit of a pass on that, because I can't really think of any positive representation of Pakistanis in pro wrestling. That said, Pacific Islanders? Oh, come on. Tons of babyface Pacific Islanders. Pacific Islanders are Samoans. The Tongans? You ever heard of a guy named Superfly Jimmy Snuka? One of the biggest babyfaces of the 80s? Oh, how about, you want to talk about Asians? Since we put them together, I didn't put them together. Pakistanis? Muslims? Okay, I can say they were not well represented. But Asians? There was a little guy named Antonio Inoki, who came to the United States and was a huge star. Got into had a match with Muhammad Ali. Guy ran his own wrestling promotion. You might know a little something called New Japan Pro Wrestling. Had partnerships with the NWA and the WWF. I mean, so Pacific Islanders and the Asians have always been pretty well represented in pro wrestling. Now, if you want to say Asian Americans, well, of course, then you got Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, because he is Asian American. But he wouldn't be the only one, but he would be the most recognizable one of Asian Americans that did very well in the wrestling business. But Pakistanis, Tony Khan is correct. Of course, I'll never forget, there was this, I forget what it was. It was some VH1 show where RZA was talking about loving wrestling as a kid. Because, RZA of the Wu-Tang Clan, he was a big fan of wrestling. He's a big fan of Kung Fu movies. And he says that he never would have known what a Samoan even was if it was not for watching WWF television at the time in New York. And you think about it, that's a lot of people who kind of feel that way, because you don't really run into Samoans, all the time. You only see them in two places. You see them in the NFL and you see them in wrestling. And you really just started seeing them outside of WWE in a more, visible way. So I think that Samoans have pretty good, they've been mostly heels, the Samoan Savages and that kind of stuff. But they still had Superfly Snuka, who was not Samoan, but, he's a Pacific Islander. But I thought that was a very interesting and kind of cringe little thing that he did there. He says that he celebrates, Asian and Pacific Islanders by making sure to feature them regularly on the show, which of course brings us to Hikaru Shida. I don't think she was the third AEW Women's Champion, and then she got bumped from her show. She got bumped from the tournament and replaced with Chris Statlander. And there was a whole thing about Hikaru Shida. I guess apparently she was in Japan and she couldn't get back to the United States in time, and so they replaced her with Chris Statlander. And she put out this tweet about how Japanese wrestling must mean nothing to them. She was being real dramatic. Oh, she was so dramatic. I mean, let's try to find this thing, because even though it's all been cleared up now, it was hilarious. It says, "Well, I already had 4 matches after the street fight, and I just finished the greatest fighting musical show, but I seem to have been injured. Japanese wrestling is nothing for them. I'm sorry. And sorry it couldn't be in the tournament, too." Of course, after it all came about that it was just an excuse because you can't tell everybody that she wasn't going to make the show. Hey, she decided to apologize. She says, "After my Philadelphia street fight, a doctor checked from AEW was required to participate in the Owen Hart Cup, and I couldn't re-enter the country in time. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. These difficulties sometimes happen with international talents." Well, don't you? How's that for your AAPI? How about that? And I'm guessing they continue with the AAPI because one of the jokers was Japanese. Very interesting stuff with Hikaru Shida. It was all a joke, but the AAPI, more society separating themselves into smaller and smaller boxes. There's no such thing as the smallest box possible is the individual. You don't get to talk about individuals. Everybody has to be sectioned off into groups, and your group has to be oppressed in some way and blame somebody else for your oppression. And what about people that look like me? My representation, and that stuff. It is what it is, man. But AEW is an absolute hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. And continuing with the AAPI representation argument, the only person that makes me, there's a couple of guys that make me feel like, Samoans is like real niggas. One of them is Samoa Joe. So Samoa Joe was in the first match, and he wrestled the Joker, the guy who didn't have to qualify to be in this tournament. And his name was Johnny Elite, aka Johnny Impact, aka Johnny Morrison, Johnny Nitro, Johnny Smackdown, John Morrison. Okay. I like John Morrison. I'm a big fan of John Morrison. WWE dropped the ball on this guy twice. He definitely should have been a bigger player. I think that he has personality. I know he's a little wishy-washy on promos, but he's a homegrown WWE guy that you would have thought they would give him more and would have done more with him, but they just never saw him as a main event guy. Former Impact heavyweight champion, former champion on Lucha Underground. Guy's been a star in AAA. He was a champion down there too. He's been a champion pretty much everywhere he's been. Really awesome talent. So, nice little pickup. I don't know if it's just an appearance, which some people have said it's an appearance. He's not really signed. In which case, AEW has to smarten up. Not just, sign the guy. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, bringing people in for one shots doesn't seem to do anybody any good. But, he's here. Well, he was here. And he botched 2 major moves. It's like the AEW botches account, kind of stole my thunder, because I was thinking right after he botched the 450 and landed on his knees, I said, what is it about AEW that these guys, Matt Sydal and Leo Rush and John Morrison, these guys have been doing this stuff forever. the stuff that they botch is the stuff they've been doing forever. Jack Evans, the stuff that he fucked up was stuff he had been doing forever. And Helico too. The stuff that these guys have been screwing up is stuff they've been doing for years. It's something about that AEW ring that the moment you step in it, you forget how to do your own shit. I do not know what it is. I do not know what it is. I don't know what it is. But the moment you step in an AEW ring, botches just start to occur. It just starts happening. It's like that shit is bad luck or something. It's like it's cursed. I can't believe it. The guy's first match, he does his little somersault. He misses Samoa Joe. I think he nicks him across the forehead or something like that. Samoa Joe face plants, which of course he's trying to sell it. But he missed him mostly. He mostly missed. And then the 450, I mean, he missed that completely. He landed on his knees and had to reach on out for him. Otherwise, this was a pretty good match. Samoa Joe isn't the Samoa Joe that he used to be. But I love Samoa Joe. And he's not as old as Undertaker is, but he has, I don't want to say he's on that level for me, but he's a guy where he's not as great as he used to be, but I still enjoy watching him go, I don't look back at him like, man, Samoa Joe, 10 years ago would have torn this fucking guy apart. That's one way of looking at things. But I recognize that the Samoa Joe I'm looking at now was a guy who was mostly retired in 2021. I think he had one or two matches the whole damn year, and now he's trying to get back in the groove. And, he's not what he used to be. I'm still a big fan of Samoa Joe. He still carries the big fight aura. I like the guy. Samoa Joe wins with the Muscle Buster. After the match, Jay Lethal, the tall guy, and Sanjay Smut ran to the ring and they beat up Samoa Joe and hit him in the arm with a pipe before all the baby faces come out there and chase him off. I don't understand why Sanjay Dutt, or I call him Sanjay Smut, is in any way involved with Samoa Joe. Why is he in any way involved with Samoa Joe? Please fire Sanjay Dutt. Fire him into the sun. All right? He sucks. There really is no purpose. No purpose. I could go all about my day for the next 99 years, never hear the name, never see the face of Sanjay Dutt ever again, and be perfectly fine. Perfectly content. Why is this perennial low-card TNA guy getting the upper hand on Samoa Joe? It makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me. All right, so the Hardy Boys, they're backstage. There were some concerns, kayfabe concerns, of course, that Jeff Hardy was not going to be medically clear for his match tonight. And it turns out that Jeff is medically clear. Well, hooray. It's a goddamn miracle. The Young Bucks come in there and says that Jeff would scared them halfway to death. And they begged him to take the night off. He's a shell of himself, and if he goes out there, he's going to get embarrassed, and Adam Cole's going to kick his head in. Jeff Hardy then stands up and says, get out of here with that Christian AFBS, bro. Then Matt Hardy says that Jeff is a real Hardy boy and not a cosplayer like these two. And they kind of tease the tension a little bit more between the two. Some people thought that Jeff Hardy was dissing Christianity here. I don't think so. I think he was sort of mocking the fake Christianity of the Young Bucks. The holier than thou, sanctimonious phoniness of the Young Bucks. I don't think he was making fun of Christianity in general. I noticed that a lot of people wish that he was making fun of Christians, but he wasn't. He was making fun of the phony Christians that were the Young Bucks, because they are heels. So their concern for him was phony. And he knows that, and that's what he was expressing in that promo. So, the right wing can get a little tight-assed and, loosen up. He was not making a Christian joke. He was just talking about the Young Bucks. So, Adam Cole, oddly enough, did not appear on this show until his match. So he didn't even get a chance to cut a promo. How unfortunate. But the main event, Jeff Hardy versus Adam Cole, baby. And Adam Cole didn't even get an entrance. He attacked Jeff Hardy during Jeff Hardy's entrance. And then this match was fairly short. It was probably like 7 or 8 minutes. I think Takeshita or Takishi or Takishi or whatever the fuck his name is had a longer match with Adam Page than than Adam Cole had with Jeff Hardy. So Adam Cole wins after Jeff Hardy misses the Swanton Bomb. He hits him with the boom knee drop. And I was like, okay, I kind of figured Jeff was going to lose. No big deal. You know, he put over the young kid. It's the smart decision to make. The winner of this match, which was Adam Cole, will face the winner of Samoa Joe and the winner of Kyle O'Reilly and Rey Fenix if you stayed awake for that match. The Young Bucks teased attacking the Hardy Boys from behind. Cole ended up actually doing it. The Young Bucks beat up the Hardys. Darby and Sting made the save. There's a big fight at the end where the super elites or the elite goon or whatever the fuck they're calling themselves, they're out there fighting, and then Sting gets hit with a chair, and Sting no-sells the chair shot. Classic Sting. But then Sting gets kicked in the face by 2 scrawny kids, and he sells it, because, a double super kick, well, that's just stronger than a steel chair. That makes sense. Then the Young Bucks Pillmanize Sting's ankle with the chair, and then we abruptly go off the air. Very, very quickly go off the air. So there was no overrun at all. And a lot of people was teasing like it was going to be an overrun to this show. No overrun at all. It went off at exactly 10 o'clock. So the main event was a little short. I guess they see Jeff as mostly a tag team wrestler. So him losing singles matches, not that big of a deal. They basically just use his name as bait to get casual fans watching. So it's successful in that regard, I guess. If you're a big fan of Jeff Hardy, you probably saw Jeff Hardy and was like, oh, I want to watch that. I've heard of Adam Cole, and you didn't get much, but you got something. So I'm not going to shit on the match completely. I didn't expect too much out of Jeff anyway. It's 2022. I'm interested in where we're going with this Sting thing, because they seem to be taking Sting out, which is good because it's the first time Sting has really been down for a while. It's been a long time since Darby and Sting have done anything. And it's been a long time since Sting has been forced to sell something for an extended period of time. So maybe they'll actually juice and milk this thing, and maybe Sting is going to have to go sit home for a while, and Darby's going to have to go it alone. That could be interesting. Maybe Darby's trying to exact revenge on the Young Bucks by himself. And he's got to beat the Young Bucks by himself or beat them up or something like that by himself. And he's going to wrestle each one of them one-on-one. That could be the case. But the super elite, the elite goon, whatever they're calling themselves, not a big fan, not a huge fan of them. But, of course, we're just slowly but surely building to the Hardy Boys versus the Young Bucks. All right, cool. Matt calling them cosplay Hardy Boys is like, yeah, but you could also say that they was aping the Rockers and the Rock and Roll Express and pretty much every 90s tag team they ever came across. Pretty much every 90s tag team there is, the Young Bucks have stolen something from them. But, good artists borrow, great artists steal. All right. So CM Punk is a mountain of death-worshipping garbage. He wore a shirt that says abortion rights are human rights. Apparently, the aborted fetus is not human. That's kind of, what about the rights of that? No, never mind. We've talked about CM Punk enough when it comes to the abortion debate. We're not going to get into that. I just want to keep asking the question, if you're a conservative or a right-wing or an anti-SJW pro wrestling fan, how can you keep watching this show when CM Punk keeps doing this stuff? I went over to an anti-SJW comic book channel and pretty much posted that same question because they were blowing AEW. And I was like, don't you realize that they're one of the biggest SJW wrestling promotions? It is the number one. WWE isn't completely, McMahon is a Republican, but he's a he's a New York Republican, which means he's a pretty liberal Republican. He doesn't really care too much about your social issues. He cares more about, unions and don't tax me, bro. That's pretty much it. He's not a God and country, what everybody seems to think, Trump is. I'm pretty sure they agreed on the no unions, no taxes. Let's, eschew some of these regulations if we can. But, all that social shit, Vince is, like, as everyone knows, is fully in the tank for Martin Luther King and all that kind of stuff. So he's going to be mostly liberal in that regard. But there's probably bound to be some type of conservative streak in there somewhere. It's most likely going to be anti-government streak. Why wouldn't it be? But Tony Khan is going to completely in a different direction, where he's going full-on progressivism pretty much all the time. And when I see like these anti-SJW YouTubers who are like, oh my God, I love AEW. It's so much fun to watch. And then you see shit like this and you're like, okay, I'm waiting to see these guys talk about this. What do you guys think about CM Punk constantly talking about abortion on TV? It's one thing for it's his Instagram account. That's his personal thing. Like, all right, sure. But he's appeared on this show numerous times doing this. You're watching this show and he's promoting abortion. And he's pro-abortion, by the way. He's not pro-choice, he's pro-abortion. If he was pro-choice, that would be different. He's pro-abortion. So I just ask that people, carry the same energy that you have for all the comic book guys that you roast all day, all the, Anita Sarkeesian, you roast her all day. Fine. Now let's get to roasting CM Punk and Tony Khan for being goddamn SJWs. Let's do it. They were kicking people out of the show for, the Nyla Rose stuff. And I sat back and waited for a lot of your favorite anti-SJWs to say something about it. They said nothing. Few of them said anything. There seems to be a certain class of wrestling YouTuber that will even mention this stuff. Most will pretend they didn't see it. Others will revel in it because, this is their politics. So you will see, bodyslam.net or Fightful or whatever. They're clapping like seals when CM Punk does stuff like this. Everybody else has to, pull the bill on their hat down and watch this with shame. Like, oh, well, I can't say nothing about it. Meanwhile, somebody like a Millennial Smark or myself or some other people will be like, hey, just like if you were on Raw wearing a pro-choice shirt, that would be a topic of conversation. It's a topic of conversation that CM Punk has routinely gone on this show wearing pro-abortion propaganda. But I spent too much time on it already. I'm just saying, apply pressure to all the guys that, they spend time talking about gay Superman and gay Robin and all that kind of shit. Apply some pressure. If they on there talking about how much they love AEW, you need to apply some pressure. What did you think about them having, males in the women's division? What is your thoughts on that? What is your thoughts on all this abortion stuff that CM Punk is doing? Him talking about how much he dislikes, rich white elites when he's a rich white elite and all that kind of stuff. Keep that same energy, bruh. Your balls shrink up when it's pro wrestling. You got big giant balls when it's movies and comic books and shit like that. But when it's pro wrestling, you shrink up your little bitty balls. Now you can't talk about it no more. You don't want to offend CM Punk. You don't want to upset him. Fuck that motherfucker, man. Fuck that guy. I said I was not going to talk about this anymore. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. So, Hangman Page is wrestling Konosuke Takeshita. Or Takeshita. The I is silent? Okay. So, of course, this is one of those what Jim Cornette calls the who we pushing match. Where you're watching this thing and you're like, who the fuck is the star supposed to be? because Hangman Page is out here, struggling. He's getting destroyed. At one point, I really wrote down like Konosuke Takeshita or Takeshita is that name is going to give me fits. All right. He is destroying him. Like that forearm he threw to Hangman Page absolutely wrecked him. It wrecked him. And then he followed it with a last ride powerbomb. And I was like, what the? Like, who is the world champion here? This fucking guy or Hangman Page? Like, who's the fucking world champion here? Anyway, Hangman Page wins the match with the GTS after following the buckshot lariat. Of course, it was absolutely ridiculous. There was a clothesline from the top rope. I mean, both Takeshita and Page were on the top rope. Takeshita clothesline Page off the top rope, and Page no-sold it. It was ridiculous. Ridiculous. Over the head belly to belly, German suplex rather. Over the head German suplex by Takeshita. Page no-sold it. I was like, what the fuck? I mean, what the hell is going on here, man? There's too much of this epic match. We got to have the epic match. And we're going to do that by no-selling. We're going to drop each other on our necks. Clothesline each other off the top rope. Do huge flips. Nope, not sell it, though. It was ridiculous. It was stupid. So Hangman Page mocks CM Punk by winning with the GTS. And then they just kind of stunt at each other. They face off and they taunt and they raise their arms and nobody says anything or does anything. And I'm just kind of like, okay, fans are supposed to just make a choice about who they like in this thing. And I'm just kind of like, I don't like this. I don't really care. It is what it is. This is not, I saw people, I love this feud. I was like, you do? Is it a feud? Is it? What they're feuding over? Well, CM Punk wants to be the world champion, and Hangman Page is the world champion. And I'm like, why not say, put a chip on Hangman Page's shoulder? Like, which is, kind of what I felt like they were going in that direction at first. Like they were going to put a chip on his shoulder. Because it seems like a very natural thing to lean into. Page is the guy nobody really wants to be the champion anymore. And yes, all the new toys have come in, and those are the guys that they want to be the champions now. The Danielsons, the Punks, the Coles. And slowly but surely, Hangman Page has been working his way through those. He beat Danielson, he beat Cole. That should be his promo. His promo should be, there's a lot of people out there who think I shouldn't be world champion anymore. Who think I never should have been a world champion in the first place. Who think I got this spot because of who my friends are. And all of those people have been proven wrong. Oh yes, Tony Khan has brought in all his brand new toys. The Danielsons, the Coles, the Punks, the Andrade, Malachi Black. I can beat them all. I've already beaten Danielson. I've already beaten Cole. You want Andrade, line them up. You want Miro, line them up. I can beat all of them. I deserve to be here. And that should have been his promos to continue sort of his thing about being an underdog. Because he's going to be the underdog going into this situation. They tried to make Punk the underdog by Punk being the scrappy old guy. But in reality, if you are a hardcore wrestling fan, and 100% of AEW's audience is, I cannot imagine being a casual watching this shit, Page is the underdog. So you go with Page. You go with Page as being the underdog, the guy who's got the belt, but he's also got a chip on his shoulder. He worked really hard, but he's not considered to be the top guy. He's not considered to be the star, And he can talk about it. How, there were times where CM Punk's face was on the posters and his wasn't. There was times where CM Punk's match was considered the main event and it was in the middle of the show. And he went on after that. Talk about it. Go there. It's happened 2 or 3 times already. I don't know why they're scared to do it. Why do you think that they're scared to do that? Scared to put some heat on this thing? What the hell are you scared of? All right, moving on. Fuego Del Sol cut a promo, and I was I was really about to rant and rave about how much Fuego del Sol fucking sucks and how I don't want to hear his voice and he's stupid. And I still should do all that. But I want to give him some credit instead. At least he had fire. If you listen to Fuego del Sol cut a promo, it's better than a lot of the guys that AEW has been trying to push over the last several years. Jungle Boy especially. He's a better promo than Jungle Boy. And in some ways, he's a better promo than Sammy Guevara. He just has babyface fire. Now, if he didn't look like a hot dog, a goddamn ballpark Frank, maybe you may take him a little bit more seriously. But he had at least some fire. Now, apparently he's going to fight the House of Black. I have no interest in that. It's going to involve the Dark Order, so I absolutely have no interest in that. All of this is trash, but at least Fuego del Sol looked like he might be a decent promo. And I was quite impressed. Give Fuego a little bit of a thumbs up for standing up for himself and sounding like he has some balls. I don't mind that. Next thing we got here, Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee defeat the Workhorsemen, which was JD Drake and Anthony Henry. I had no interest in this. I was like, boy, what the fuck? Why is this on here? But we got squash matches. Perfectly fine. After the match, though, we get served. There's a bunch of people getting served out here. And we start with Keithophiles Lee. The great philosopher Burger King. Ladies and gentlemen, I feel that with that victory, Swerve and I are now a top 5 ranked tag team in the vaunted AEW Tag Team Championship division. And as he's about to go into that, Hobbs and Starks, who still sounds like two cops from an 80s cop TV show like Miami Vice or something like that, they strut in. Starks calls these guys selfish jabronis, says that they deserve the shot because they beat them. They did do that. Swerve then told Ricky Starks that he's dressed like a bar of soap wearing a pearl necklace, which got a chuckle out of me. He does look like a bar of ivory. Okay, so he I don't know how that's a diss, but he did it. He dissed them. Then Jurassic Express came out there. Christian wanted Starks to shut the hell up. Says that he looks like he golfs with his grandpa, then challenged them to a triple threat tag team title match, and then continued to challenge them by saying he wants Jungle Boy to get his win back over Swerve, but he also, Starks. So he challenged them to a triple threat match with no stakes whatsoever next week. Swerve, Ricky Starks, Jungle Boy. This was a segment. It was a segment. Ricky Starks, I still like Ricky Starks. Swerve shows some personality here for the first time in forever. He did more than just move his shoulders and slink around and stuff. I don't know why Swerve and Keith Lee are a tag team. Because there's nothing for them to do as a single? Or is it because AEW has to put everybody in a tag team? They've got, look, I know partnerships is kind of important, but it seemed like a crutch in AEW. Very few people stand alone in AEW. I don't know. Maybe they figure if you're not a big enough star to stand alone, you're not alone. I've seen some people say that Keith Lee is in amazing shape. I've said, can he get into good shape? And then we can start talking about amazing. He looked like shit early in his Ring of Honor AEW run. He is actually improving as far as his look is concerned. I wouldn't say he's amazing. I would say he's improved. I know that there was some concerns about his weight, especially around the time he first got there. That his weight was an issue. The dirt sheets was even talking about it, that he was just really had blown up so much. But apparently now, he's kind of slimming down. He's never going to be skinny. He's just an endomorph. It's just always going to be a big guy. It's always going to be about whether he can maintain a certain fighting weight, if we could use that terminology, and stay healthy, without, crippling himself too much and starving himself too much or working out too much. But we'll see. He's certainly better stamina than when he started. I wouldn't say his body type has changed that much, but he's certainly got better stamina. So good on Lee for improving. So we got a segment between Chris Statlander and Red Velvet. They'll be fighting on Rampage, apparently. Red Velvet said that, oh yeah, we used to save each other, but things are different now. And I'm going to be the winner of the Owen tournament. I'm like, we used to save each other. Like, that's a weird way of saying we used to be friends. We used to be besties. We used to be homegirls. We used to save each other. like we just randomly walked off the plank and I just catch you by the wrist and like, it's my turn. Like, what the hell? Chris Statlander says that I wasn't even supposed to be in this tournament. I was like, yeah, that's right. But I'm taking this opportunity to go all the way to the top. And I was like, oh boy, she's got no personality. Here's the thing. Chris Statlander, they made a big deal. Maybe they didn't make a big deal because AEW doesn't really make a big deal of anything and they don't do episodic wrestling. They made a show of showing us that Chris Statlander was getting rid of the alien persona. And then she went into the closet. Like, they showed this vignette of her removing all the alien stuff. And she was going to be the real Chris Statlander, which would have been interesting. You know, I'd have been like, okay, let's see that. But I don't think she's wrestled on this show since they did that vignette. I don't think she's been wrestling on this show. And I reviewed every episode of Dynamite that has occurred thus far. I don't think I've seen Chris Statlander on this show until this segment. Maybe she did some background stuff and I wasn't paying attention, but I'm pretty sure she was not featured on this show since they started doing the getting rid of the alien stuff. And they left her with not much left because she really has got nothing going for her right now. Quite a shame. So Jade Cargill comes in and she's oiled up. I mean, look at her shoulders. She's glistening. The girl is glistening. Every muscle is pulsating with power and beauty. And she comes in and she says that Red Velvet tricked Chris Statlander to thinking they were really friends. But Red Velvet needs a real leader. Okay? And told Tony to cut the shit because that's apparently her thing. I don't even know what that means. Nobody does. If you say something with enough charisma, it doesn't matter. And she's at least got some of that. Oddball thing here is I wanted to really hammer home the concept that if you're really friends with somebody, you wouldn't say that you were their leader, you know, but this is wrestling. So, you know, somebody has to be the alpha in this situation. This was a prime opportunity rather to explain why Red Velvet is with the baddie section. This was a prime opportunity to do that because Chris Statlander is her friend. And Chris Statlander could be like, hey, what the hell's gotten into you? And then Red Velvet could have just said, this is what's gotten into me. This is why I'm in the baddie section. You know, that was a perfect opportunity. But these people do not write episodic wrestling show. They don't, and that's what they're not doing that here. I don't know what they're doing. They're just doing something different. You know, I don't know. You know, if you watched the territory stuff, you know, you have to actually build on the previous week. You know, you can't go 6 months without mentioning shit. You have to build on the previous week. And everything that I've watched on the network was episodic wrestling. I mean, yes, they had matches. Maybe the matches didn't mean that much because it was Joe Blow versus Joseph Blow in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the Mid-Atlantic Mud Wrestling title or some shit. But at the same time, there was something going on that show that was episodic. You watch World Class. You used to watch things build over time. You watch Mid-South. You watch things build over time. AEW has elements of things building over time. But then they have elements of things just being thrown together at the last minute. You know? Or things that look like it's been thrown together. Even if it's been built up over time, it's still like it's been slapdash, glued together with somebody chewing bubble gum. And it's like, blah, 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 blah. It'll stay for now. You know, it'll hold up for now. You know? Speaking of which, episodic television. This is actually Okay, MJF and Wardlow. And Wardlow was outside in the parking lot, no shirt. And I was just like, hey, you was in the parking lot hanging out with no shirt. You know, you better thank God it wasn't the NXT parking lot. So we're going to do the 10 lashes. And this is a crazy scene because I wasn't really completely paying attention. And I didn't know the 10 lashes had actually started because Wardlow did not sell a damn thing. And this was the perfect way to do it. He did not sell a damn thing. I mean, MJF is whack. Wardlow just kind of like, whatever, dog. Do your thing. He hit him again. You know, like, whatever. MJF spazzes out, whacks him like 6 or 7 more times, and is screaming at him, I hate you! I hate you! You know, he's just losing it because Wardlow is not hurt at all by this belt. Then he hits him in the nuts, and I was like, oh boy, here we go. And then he whipped him while he was on the ground. He choked him with the belt, hit him with the Dynamite diamond ring, you know, hit him with a Death Valley driver. They beat Wardlow up. Okay, fine. The Wardlow is maximizing the minimum, you know, which is classic pro wrestling. It makes sense for him who is a giant mountain of muscle, to not feel little MJF with this belt. He's not going to feel that. It makes sense, you know. So I was 100% okay with him not selling it. I think it was perfect. And I think he sold it perfectly too, because his body language was so, you know, lackadaisical. It was just kind of like, do your thing, man. Like, you know, like, it was cool. You know, it was like, yeah, we're just doing this whipping thing. You know, he'll get out of his system. You know, like it just, Wardlow just kind of like, all right. Yeah, like, all right. So I actually like this. They did a good job with the 10 lashes. The MJF stuff, once again, is the best stuff here. They had to do something to give MJF the advantage, so they had him hit him in the balls. Okay, sure. Yeah, sure. Why not? Roppongi Vice. Oh my God, what the hell? Oh, Rocky Romero. Talk about a boring fucking guy, man. Rocky Romero, super boring. I guess the best friends have broken up because I don't see those guys anymore. Like Orange Cassidy and Hatchet Head Taylor. I don't see those guys anymore. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying I don't see them. So Roppongi Vice is now back full time. Yay? Am I supposed to be happy about that? How am I supposed to feel about that? And they want all the tag team titles. They want the Ring of Honor tag team titles. They want the IWGP tag team titles. They want the AEW tag team championships. And then they challenged FTR for a title match. And I was like, oh, okay. So we just going to lose right out the gate and then disappear. Okay. Nice knowing you're Roppongi Vice or Roppongi 2K or whatever the fuck you calling themselves now. This gets us to Kyle O'Reilly and Rey Fenix. Rey Fenix. The winner will face Samoa Joe. This match, Kyle O'Reilly has all the charisma of a shaved bar of soap, masquerading as a packet of mozzarella cheese. That's how much this fucking doughy guy here. No. You know what? Never been a fan of Kyle O'Reilly. Even when he was a Ring of Honor champion. When he was wrestling in Ring of Honor, I thought he was super boring. I know they put the belt on him because Cole was leaving. I think that was around the time Cole was about to go to Japan. He was leaving Ring of Honor. And so they told this really, really awesome story of Kyle O'Reilly never winning the big one, never beating Adam Cole or something like that. And then he finally won the title. He finally beat Adam Cole, and Adam Cole slinked off to Japan. He was there for a little while before he went to NXT. I was not a big fan of Kyle O'Reilly then. I just thought that the story made sense. It was just like the fucking guy, Trevor Murdoch in NWA, where the story that was crafted around him and in his chase to be the champion was far more interesting than him or his title run could possibly be. It was the same thing with Kofi Mania. It was, you want to see this guy get to the top of the mountain. But once he gets up there, you're like, yay, good job, bro. Now, somebody come knock this fucking guy off here because I really don't want to see him be the champion. I just want to see him get there. That was satisfying for me to see him get up there. It's not satisfying for me to see him defend the title and be the man because he's not that guy. So that's kind of like how I always have seen Kyle O'Reilly is he was a story that was crafted around him. And then when he went to NXT, he didn't have that story. He's a good wrestler, great wrestler, but it's just not interesting. Not interesting. Not interesting. Not an interesting guy at all. Ray Fenix did a walk across the top rope into a hurricane rana. I'm sorry. He almost killed himself and he almost killed Kyle O'Reilly. Sad times, man. Sad times. Kyle O'Reilly wins, which was a surprise to me. He won with a leg trap armbar. It was an interesting looking maneuver. But we just got too many Dean Malenkos in AEW. It's just too many. Too many guys that are short on charisma, long on wrestling talent. It's just so many of them. It's just so bad. But Samoa Joe and Kyle O'Reilly ought to be fun at least. All right, so the Blackpool Combat Club and the Jericho Appreciation Society. Man, you talk about going on too long and absolutely imploding upon yourself. This promo segment ruined the rest of the show. Now, the show had been struggling for a while. The MJF segment was really good, and then it started to tilt downward around that. After the MJF segment started to tilt down. But this was a sharp decline, and it got really bad from here. Jericho gets on the microphone. It starts talking about who could have put together such a ragtag, violent group, and he says, of course, his good buddy William Regal. Then he says he's surprised that William Regal's brain still works because he could have been one of the greatest world champions of all time. Instead, he just became an addict. And that he's been fired everywhere he's been, and now he's made it to AEW on the back of his proteges. And then he runs down the proteges, Santana, Ortiz, Eddie Kingston. Then he gets to Bryan Danielson and says that Danielson is just a nerd. He's probably never drank or did any drugs in his life. He says hanging around with William Regal, he's going to have you. He said something about biscuits. It made me laugh. I didn't write it down because it was funny. He said something about biscuits and whiskey. And he says, you'll be doing biscuits and whiskey until you're in the same program with Moxley. And then he put the camera on Moxley, and he was definitely less than enthused at that comment. You could tell he knew it was coming, but he was still less than enthused at that comment. He was not happy. He was not happy. Not happy. So Jericho starts talking about Regal and Moxley being good buddies because they're birds of a feather. They're both addicts and they both got these problems. And I was like, oh boy. Jericho just went on so long running them down. It was crazy. Regal gets on the microphone and he's speaking very slow, but he's building to a point. He's talking about, since 1997, Sunshine, every time I've shared in a show with you, which you have documented, it was many a time. And he's talking about this, and people are like, oh, old man, what? Shut up, what? And they just started wetting William Regal. And I was like, oh, baby. We done brought the what chance to AEW. Let's just start throwing shit in the air. Let's start throwing chairs, man. I'm mad. Throw a chair. They wutted through the entire fucking promo. They missed the punchline. The punchline is that William Regal sneaks off and puts Chris Jericho's toothbrush in his anus, which of course was a counter to Jericho saying that he was going to piss in his tea again. I was like, this is not good. This is off the rails. So then Jericho is about to challenge them to Stadium Stampede. Moxley says, nah, I ain't doing that shit. Which I think is a very Moxley thing to do. I ain't doing that shit. Then Then he starts cutting his promo, but he's doing his Moxley shoulder thing, and I'm like, oh God, fuck. It's pro wrestling versus sports entertainment, whatever the horse shit you guys do. I'm like, oh God. How he wakes up for violence and he sleeps for violence and he cashes his checks in violence and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh God. I was like, my eyeballs are rolling around in my head. And next thing I know, I'm watching this thing. I've lost track of what's going on. I'm not even going to hold you up. I start to see Danielson and Kingston shove each other. And I'm like, that's interesting. What's this about? And it flipped out. It was over. I was like, huh? Pardon me? We were setting up a 10-man tag here. Wheeler Yuta is not going to be involved. Praise God. He's not going to be involved. So it's, the proud and powerful Eddie Kingston, Danielson, and Moxley versus the Jericho Appreciation Society. The Jericho Appreciation Society is fucked because, it's Chris Jericho and literally minions, literally just like laughing goofs who just hang around, Yeah, and that 2.0 guy, he talked. The guy with the good voice, he talked, but he didn't have anything to say. And Daniel Garcia also talked, but he cannot talk and then had nothing to say. So I was like, this is the shits. This is the shits. This is awful. Okay, this is awful. And then it ends with Danielson and Kingston shoving each other for reasons that are unclear to me as somebody who probably dozed off during the middle of this thing. So I apologize for being incomplete on this. But once again, I was like, man, this segment was so long and it was so many moving parts and the crowd was booing and the audio was bad. And I was just like, man, whatever. I don't give a fuck. I figure it is what it is. So, out of nowhere, we cut the cameras to Matt Sydal and Dante Martin. And I'm like, oh, we back to this. Dante Martin and Matt Sydal want to fight the Blackpool Combat Club. I'm like, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? Anyway, Britt Baker is now wrestling her Joker, who is Maki Ito. Maki Ito. The fired idol Maki Ito, who I was told is a fun character. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get Maki Ito. She lost, and that's all that matters. And then Toni Storm came out there. I thought she was actually going to do something, but that's not exactly Toni Storm's thing anymore. She doesn't actually do anything anymore. She just stands around looking pretty. That's her whole gimmick now is, hey, look at how pretty I am. I'm just going to go out here and stand. And everybody's going to be like, I love me some Toni Storm. She's so hot. Look at her OnlyFans. Like, man, ugh. Do something, girl. Work for this. Sorry. I expected more from Toni Storm. She's still fine. She's still a fine young lady. But she ain't really earning anything right now. She ain't doing shit. Okay, so the worst segment of the show. As bad as the Jericho Appreciation Society was, this Serena Deeb promo was the worst promo probably in AEW history. This promo was so bad. And it was bad even though the content was good content. Now, allow me to explain. If you take what Serena Deeb was saying, it was fine, but it was delivered in a horrible, horrible way. So Shivani's in the ring. He's about to talk to Serena Deeb or whatever. Serena Deeb comes out there and she confronts Tony Schiavone about saying in a video package that she can't beat Thunder Rosa. Good content. That's good shit. I mean, she's paying attention and she's insecure. So she's watching the video packages and she's internalizing that people are saying that she's not good enough. So she calls out Dustin. She calls out, and she says JR is the only one with any brains around here. Because he's the only one who knows that I can beat her. And she targets Dustin and says that she respects Dustin And Dustin should respect her because Dustin knows what she went through in this business, that she got breast implants to satisfy some pathetic old perverts, that she shaved her head and it got her nowhere. And says that if he had any balls, he would admit that she can beat Thunder Rosa. Now, I said it with a lot more fire and conviction than Serena Deeb did. Serena Deeb, her personality is so dry. It's so dry. I was like, oh God. The crowd did not want this. They did not respond to anything. She talked about getting breast implants. The crowd didn't say, oh, or wow, that's a hell of a revelation. Nothing. They just kind of was like still murmuring and chattering about like, come on, end this, boo, boring. What? And I was like, oh, I felt so bad for her. I like Serena Deeb, but they've changed her character. She was the professor. That was the character, and now she's like, everybody's going to respect me. It's like, that can be a part of the professor gimmick, but it needs to be a little bit more on the confidence side. You can have, a sort of chip on your shoulder, like I was saying with Hangman Page earlier, but she's supposed to be confident. She's supposed to be out there to prove something. And I don't feel like she was convincing in this situation. I think what they should have done is they should have done a backstage sit down promo with Serena Deeb, where she can still say all the same things that she was going to say, but say, JR, I did this sit down with you because you're the only one with any brains around here. You're the one who knows that I'm the professor. I have taught some of the greatest women's wrestlers in the world, but I didn't teach them everything that I know. And that all of these people don't understand what I had to go through to get to this position, to be the professor. That I did all of the ridiculous things a lot of these young women doing now. I did the breast implants. I shaved my head. I took a job I didn't really want as a trainer. I did all of these things to get where I am today and yada, yada, yada. And these people are disrespecting me when they say I can't beat Thunder Rosa or I'm not as good as Thunder Rosa. That's disrespectful. If they'd have done it in a way where they could have edited her comments to add personality to it, to, cut in some photos and stuff like that, this would have been so much better. But her standing flat-footed in the ring, cutting a promo, no, never again. Never again. I never want to see this again. I never want to see anything like it again. She is 100% Dean Malenko. She is the Dean Malenko of the women's division. Dean Malenko never would have cut a 15-minute promo or whatever the fuck. This was like good, probably 6 or 7 minutes. No, this was entirely too long. Entirely too long. This was not good. This is awful. It's one of the worst segments in AEW history. This is bad. Bad promos, bad. And it's all people with no personality. It's all people with no personality. You can't do the same things with everybody. WWE can get away with somebody going out there and cutting a promo for 10 minutes if they have personality. If you don't have any personality, we're going to keep it short. All right. Now, the only person who really gets away with doing long promos and really ain't got shit to say is Charlotte and The Miz. But The Miz has personality. He has charisma. At the very least, The Miz is going to, when my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut. And people get back into what he's saying. If they start to boo and trail off and whatever, he's got material that he can go into and bring them back around. Charlotte, same thing. When Charlotte's getting monotonous, she has things that she can go into to get people back around. When people are not used to doing these promos because they've never done them before, or they don't have the personality, or they're not witty enough, they have no charisma, they should not be in these segments. Do pre-tapes. Okay? Sit down with JR, Or if you wanted her to confront and intimidate Tony Schiavone, do it in a pre-tape segment where she, kicks over her chair and gets in his face and says, "You did not believe in me. You, in a video package that I watched as I was watching it at home with my husband or wife or whatever, my children or whatever the hell, said that I was going to lose to Thunder Rosa. Who the fuck do you think you are? What do you know about this business? Who did you ever beat? Who did you ever train? Who are you to critique me?" That sort of thing. It would have showed a lot more fire, a lot more personality. It would have really gotten her over. And it's hard for you to believe in Deeb because Thunder Rosa doesn't say shit. They did a fight scene where Thunder Rosa got hit in the face with the belt. And people was just happy the fucking thing was over. They didn't care. They didn't care. They was just happy this shit was over. I feel so bad for Serena Deeb because I like her. And the match is going to rule. The match is going to kick ass for sure. Because Thunder Rosa is really good. Serena Deeb is really good. But getting there is going to be a struggle. Because who's going to use the personality? Who's going to do the personality stuff? Who's going to sure, they're not going to hit each other in the face with pies, but maybe they should. Maybe they should. Maybe somebody should get hit in the face with a pie in this situation. Maybe somebody, it ain't to wake a motherfucker up. Maybe you get hit in the face with enough pies or, a bowl of green beans or something like that. You'll wake up and actually be like, oh shit, I need to have personality in order to work in this business. Maybe. I was embarrassed by this episode of Dynamite. It was really bad. It was one of the worst Dynamites in a long time. It was certainly worse than last week. Last week was, passable. This week was just not good. That Jericho segment, nah. That Deeb segment, nah. Nah, man. nah, bro. They tried to add more promos and personality to the show, but I don't think they succeeded. They tried though, so I'm gonna give them some credit for trying. But the Jokers, I think that the Maki Ito Joker was probably a flop because I think most people kind of knew it was her once they heard she wasn't going to be in Japan for much longer. Everybody was kind of like, "Oh, she's going to be the Joker," and then it was. But John Morrison was a nice little surprise. I didn't hate that. I just wish that he hadn't botched and kind of fucked up his chance. But let me know what you guys think about this show. Like, share, and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace out.
MagMongoSlade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.